Hello, everyone. It is Friday, October 8th, 10:56 a.m. And I just wanted to do a quick video, just some food for thought. A train of thought I've had over the last couple days of just, especially being back on social media right now, just kind of sitting back and watching everything and really meditating upon the state of the world and the state of the church and the state of my own soul and what I know about God. And in one of the videos I did a couple of days ago, in reading the diary entries, some selected diary entries of St. Faustina's diary, I read something that really struck me that I had already read, but I had kind of forgot about. And it's really relevant to our times, I think. More people seem to be trying to seek out the truth and things like that. And what St. Faustina was told by Jesus himself in her diary as she recorded it was that, I'm basically summing it up, but we are never going to be able to comprehend or to know God in his entirety. So what we really need to be focusing on is knowing his attributes, knowing his characteristics, and trying to imitate them. And so in pondering this, what I have come to, at least in our current situation, one of the conclusions I have come to is that God obviously is the creator of all, right? And that's kind of his claim to fame, I guess you could say. Yes, he's merciful and he's loving and everything else, but before all that, I guess you could say he was a builder. He was a creator. He created everything just from the words of his mouth. He spoke it into existence. He is the creative life force. He is the building life force. And in our situation that we currently find ourselves in the West, I don't know what's going on in the other non-Western countries, really, because it seems to be the West where I'm seeing the most tyranny. The third world countries, if you will, seem to actually almost be less tyrannical than the West. Anyway, what I have come to the conclusion of is the following. Trying to change the tide is not necessarily the right answer in this current situation we find ourselves in. And what I mean by that is the traditional route of trying to vote people in and blah, 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 and waiting for a top-down approach where the government, we need better leaders in the government to try to change things, which is all true. However, what really needs to happen is this ground-up, grassroots movement of building an alternate society within the country. Obviously, there's nowhere else to go, so we have to stay here, right? But building, really becoming self-sufficient. I'm not talking about like getting off the grid, although if you're in a position to do that, God bless you. But more along the lines of saying no to the medical tyranny that has befallen us, saying no to being a medical experiment, saying no to cutting up babies to use for medical experimentation. And really understanding the following. History shows that at the height of societies, right before they self-destructed, they sacrificed humans. They participated in human sacrifice, usually to their false gods, if you will, just the Egyptian gods of old and whatever. The false gods who are really, as we know them, fallen angels who had these people convinced that they were gods. But today, maybe it doesn't look like that, but it's the same concept. Our false gods today are women's rights, freedom, and science. Okay. So what do the people of God need to do instead of sitting back and getting all upset and fearful and panicking is realizing that you are a child of God. You are made in the image of God. You were made in the image of the Creator. So what we need to do is harness that creativeness, the creative attributes of God the Father, and build. We need to create. We need to build businesses. We need to support each other in doing this, most importantly. We need to find like-minded people. And for me, I prefer I'm an island by myself. I'm not a big community person, but it's extraordinarily important in these times. I want to talk a little bit about where I come from. I come from originally the New Haven, Connecticut area. And my family is a bunch of immigrants, Catholic immigrants. I'm Polish, I'm Irish, and I'm Italian. And they all came over right around the same time. The one thing they all shared in common was, number one, their Catholic faith. Number two, the fact that they were ostracized from society. A lot of people forget, like, the Catholics were treated terribly. There's a reason we have Columbus Day, and it's because they killed innocent Italians. And so to make up for it, they gave them Columbus Day, which is now under attack because Christopher Columbus is evil or whatever. But the point of the matter is this. What they did was they banded together, and it was naturally for them through the church, because that's what they all had in common. So they banded together, and eventually what started happening was they couldn't get jobs. That's why they were so poor. It was really hard for them to get jobs. Even like if a father or whatever died, the widow had no support, nothing like this. So a man by the name of Father McGivney, I think I'm saying that right, stepped in. He's from New Haven, Connecticut. Or actually, he's not from there, but that's where his parish was. And he stepped in, and he stepped up, and he said enough of this, because what was happening was the men were joining organizations like the Freemasons in order to just simply get jobs to survive. So Father McGivney comes from Irish immigrants. I think his parents were Irish immigrants. Large family, large Catholic family, becomes a priest. He steps up and forms the Knights of Columbus as, number one, to support widows, to try to give some financial support to the widows whose children were getting taken away, to try to keep children from going into the state system, and to a network, as a networking fraternal organization for men to be able to support each other and hire each other. And that's how the Knights of Columbus was formed, and now his cause is up for canonization, for sainthood. And I forget where it's at right now, what step in the process it's at, but somebody can remind me. Last year I went home, my grandmother was really sick, and I actually got to see his parish, and there's a big sign out front that says, Father McGivney, and whatever step he was in that process. So that's the history of the Catholic Church in America. I mean, not the whole history, obviously. That's a small part of it, but that's my history. That's my genetic history in America, as far as my family is concerned. And so when I see all these people in despair that came from the same backgrounds as me, like whose families did the same thing my family did, and when I see them in despair about, oh, I have to get this job to keep my job, I think to myself, no, you don't. The answer is not to comply. The answer is to form Knights of the Knights of Columbus, or you know what I mean, like societies like that, where you are in your community. Now, it would be better if you could get out of the blue states or whatever, but the answer is to form that and then to support each other. And by doing that, we have an alternate, we kind of build side by side. Use the resources that you can while you can in the system, so to speak, but get out of the system. Stop depending on the system, because the system at this point is trying to enslave us. If you can't see that, I don't know how to help you. I can say that I have been in an abusive marriage. I have been in a marriage with, I guess you can call a sociopath or a narcissist. I just call it evil because that's what it is. And what people like that do is they first try to degrade you and demoralize you so that you are at a weakened state and they can come in and have control over you. And that's really what's happening right now. And the hardest step is to look at that and say, if I stay in this relationship, I'm going to die. This is not going to be good for me or my family. I need to leave this situation. And for me, it took a lot. It's a hard decision, and it's a hard reality to come to. For me, it took pretty much, I was faced with life or death. If I stay, I'm going to die. And I almost did. So I had to come to that conclusion, like, this isn't good. Like, this isn't pleasing to God. This isn't good for my family. So I left, and I started over with nothing, with literally nothing. Just a handful of things, whatever I could fit in the back of my car, and I moved across the country. Actually, I couldn't even afford to move across the country. The FBI helped me move across the country, really. So I'm not a stranger to this concept of starting over. And what needs to happen is all these people who are being persecuted out of the system, purged, I guess would be a better word, out of the system, go and start your own medical practice. Go and start, whatever it is you got kicked out of, find another way. You'll be all right. Even if you lose your job and lose your house and whatever else, eventually you'll be all right. Because you know why? Because God's going to see you doing the right thing, and he's going to help you. I promise you that. So that's what I really wanted to get at. I know this is rambly, but we need to focus not so much on what the enemy's doing, although keep an eye on it. So you obviously, because it affects all of us, but really we need to focus on building something new, creating, building, getting away from the beast system, especially when it comes to things like necessities, food, water, stuff like that. Finding alternate ways, finding people that you can network with that are sane, that don't believe in this medical tyranny. Listen, my son wanted a jelly donut this morning. Long story short, I had promised him a jelly donut, and I'm like really mindful about where I spend my money now. So like if you are out there like Krispy Kreme giving away free donuts to those who can prove vaccination, I'm not shopping at your establishment ever again. Let's just make that clear. And that's the attitude we all need to have. So go support the local donut guy. Go support the local farmer's market. Grow your own garden. Can your own food as much as your ability. I don't live in the country. I live near the beach. So I get it. Like, I don't have land to farm or anything like that. But we're not all called to do that. We're called to make the most. We're called to play the cards, the hand that we were dealt. That's what we're called to do. And we have to do that to the best of our ability. And we don't do that by bowing down to the system. The more you comply, the worse it gets. The more you stay in an abusive relationship, the more likely you are to let that person kill you. Like, really, this is life or death, and that's how we all have to look at it. You can't comply. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard because I constantly have messages in my inbox talking about, well, the Pope said this and the Vatican said the jab is okay. Well, you know what? The church teaching says that I have to follow my conscience. And if my conscience is violated, then I'm not allowed to go along with it. And this is violating my conscience on many, many levels. Not just because of the abortion issue, not just because it's experimental, but also the social implications of how this is being handled. So I know it's hard, but we have to take a stand. And I believe the more people that take a stand, the more God is going to help us, because we need a lot of help. This isn't something that we can just do on our own. Rome wasn't built in a day, but Rome's not going to fall in a day either. And just understand that that's the point we're getting at. So in the history of the world, like I said, like as soon as the human sacrifice starts becoming prevalent and mainstream, the society is going to implode. That's just the way it goes. So good people need to stick together and start building. We need to start building. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Joan of Arc Media out.